What's up, everyone? L the Alchemist here with a friend of mine, ND Blackwood. How are you doing tonight, man?
Well, I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. Thank you very much for inviting me to your podcast. Glad to be there. And yeah, I'm still happy to discuss with you the release of the Encyclopedia and Vampirism. We have a lot to discuss, a lot to compare with our homework. We were discussing together a bit the Body of Blacklight before we started this recording.
Mm.
So glad to be
And
there.
got it right here, everyone. You definitely have to check this book out. Honestly, when it comes to books, I'm already almost about halfway done right off the get. Because there's just so much information and so much when it comes to vampirism and information about ancient religions and kind of like the different vampiric beings or ideologies back then and just ancient history, which I found just so fascinating with this too, talking about the dragon and how that's in every single ancient religion and mythology all around the world in different time periods. And that actually kind of sparks my first question to you, which is, would you say the Draconian strain, you could say, when you join that current, is that more of a Dracula type of way it was created, or is it more of that ancient dragon and the strain was created by an ancient dragon, or how about what is that?
So the one you're referring to is actually the Path of the Dragon, which I describe in Scholomance. The Path of the Dragon was created, as far as it is documented, by the Dacians, who were the ancestors of Romanians. So the Dacian were worshippers of a god which is presented in that book, which is Zalmoxis. So Zalmoxis was said to be the supreme god of the Dacians, but a very interesting fact about him is that he is known to have mortal life. He was
Mm-hmm.
said to be by the Greeks to be a student of Pythagoras, which brings us to ancient Greek and the inner mystery school of ancient Greeks. Um, so there is a controversy on that because Greeks will say that Zalmoxis was a student of Pythagoras, while some Romanian scholars will say the opposite, that Pythagoras drew inspiration from the religion of Zalmoxis. But anyway, Zalmoxis was known in Romania to be some kind of prophet to begin with. He was a holy man who spent times in the mountains in search for a form of immortality and ascent.
Mm-hmm.
Then after is this ascent, people were designated inside the tribe of the Dacians as messengers of Zalmoxis, and they were basically throw themselves on spears uh, to receive a particular form of death. So it was a sacrifice at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, After their death, they were said to live forever on an invisible plane that we now call the astral plane,
Mm-hmm.
and become immortal messengers of Zalmoxis and link between the god and his followers, his human adepts. So the source of vampirism in the Balkanic region and Transylvania and in general that region, to me, is the cult of Zalmoxis, which have spread over the years and have changed face. But
Mm-hmm.
this is the proto vampires of the region, and the one I affiliated myself with years ago. But indeed, this include um, the strain of the Order of the Dragon that you may have discovered in previous book, which is related to a specific order or a chivalrous order of the Renaissance that was driven by Emperor Sigismund and his wife Barbara of Scilly. So in the Renaissance, they didn't use the methodology of the ancient Dacians. They used a specific book called the Book of Bromland the Mage, which is at first sight a book of Yevit meditation, but contain a specific chapter which is based on resurrecting the dead and having them packed with you. And this is what was done to the wife of the Emperor Sigismund, Barbara of Scilly, who was basically, according to the Book of Bromland the Mage, resurrected by an advisor of the emperor who was practicing a form of black magic. Mm-hmm. And since this particular day, this woman only appeared at night. She became what is now called an undead or vampires, or choose any terms that you may like. So this is basically some form of strain or continuous history of vampirism in Central Europe, at least. And when I say Central Europe, I go to the north of Italy and the city of Venice, to the border of Turkey. And this is something that takes roots in antiquity, but continues on different form from the Renaissance with this form of high magic, which is a form of Bromland the Mage, to much modern case that you may have so in Romanian press during the 20th century. So you asked me first about ancient dragons archetypes. This is really in general related to another area of the world, which is both the Middle East with the myths of Tiamat, and in general Latin America, where you see this cult of serpent beings. Hope that answer your question.
No, that was great. No, that helped pull into the lineage of things. And when I was reading, I even read when I was reading Nergal, and how that's a specific type of strain. And at the end of the day, they all kind of descend from the same thing, but there are these different strains. And I mean, even your story about your friend and his process through that, and just like the warning of that and the change of your actual structure. I mean, when I had worked with different entities such as Belial, I noticed that kind of my characteristics, in a sense, changed and evolved. Not kind of, fully evolved. And when I worked with different entities, it was like I changed. And I know as within, so without. And when I'm hearing about this vampiric strain, I feel like there's another chain in which you then connect into that my only kind of hesitation with the whole thing is, once you pass on, can you, if you chose to, be reincarnated back into a body? But I know that that's kind of the way to elevate beyond it and break through that cycle of reincarnation. But is it you become a master to be able to do both choices, or is it kind of once you do it, you're locked in?
I tend to consider, well, of course, I don't have necessarily a definitive answer to that. I can only speculate and have, let's say, a theoretical answer to that.
Yeah.
If you take the texts for what they are, what is reincarnated is always said to be the higher self, or the thing that people call the soul, or basically this link that associate you with the rest of creation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you create a body of blacklight, so a new undead. You separate yourself from this. So your astral body and your mental body tend to anchor themselves to a new vibration, a new anchor, let's say, which is a strain. Be either a strain, as I describe it in Scholomance, but sometimes it can also be a specific undead. So it's not that these undeads want your soul, because they absolutely don't care, as far as I know. But basically, the process is going to cut you from this higher self and gives birth, let's say, to a new being, a being which is depraved of what people call a soul or a higher self. So, can this be reincarnated? My logical guess will be no, because there will be no link to the global creation. The link will be established with the string itself and not with the will of samsara. So I will go for now, and I tend to consider that most of the time when these beings want to reincarnate, they use possessions. But never say no, let's say. So let's let the question open. But theoretically speaking, no.
Yeah, and that was just one process that I went on. It's kind of thinking about, but then like I think about Saint Germain and how he kind of goes in and out of reality, but that's kind of a different, ascended masters type versus the vampire strain, which is a different obviously frequency. But when we were talking about the beforehand before we went live, I did a course on the Blacklight Fire of Olympus, and I called it Blacklight Alchemy. And then I was releasing that, I saw inside of one of your books, I believe it was Scholomance, on a newsletter from Become a Living God, and talking about the Blacklight body. And so I'm thinking about what are the similarities and what are the differences between these two things, because that's the crazy part about inventions, as well as just people, when they work with a certain being, they have the same experiences and all that other stuff. It's like very, very crazy. And what the fire is just like different beings in the Goetia, some from the Simon Necronomicon, a couple angelic beings, and the path workings I had to undergo with them helped me be able to evolve into a different being and forge me essentially. And working with all of them together, bringing forth an astral fire to collect and then give that fire to an individual, kind of like, like a fire you'd get a torch or something like that. It was kind of created for that it would envelop your being so that you would be on fire about your aspirations to become the Olympian of your own life, to knock down the obstacles and be a juggernaut, essentially, knocking through whatever thing you have to do and standing up, seeing yourself as that demigod, God, to, pulverize things. Within this body of Blacklight, I would just love to hear all about the body of Blacklight.
Well, the body of Blacklight to me is the exact process that I described in the previous question. When I was, when you're going to make a pact with certain strains of vampires, you're going to separate yourself from your higher self, from your soul, or your permanent link to God. And you're basically going to create a new being. And that being will be composed of your astral body, your mental body, which is your personality, your ego, your etheric body, and an essence that will replace this soul. So, according to the tradition, it may differ. There was an author called Embelin, I guess it's French, and Embelin described the process from this transference, which we find in the magic of a Brahmin the Mage, by having 4 cardinal spirits. And in the book's Scholomance, these 4 cardinal spirits are linked to a specific square that is used to create a vampiric being. And these beings are Aritan, Oriens, Paimon, and Amaimon. And the combined powers of these cardinal spirits invade, let's say, the astral body of the new adept and create a new entity. So his soul has been replaced by the powers of this being, which is the source of the strain. Now, there's different strains, so it's not necessarily always Payman, Amaymon, Ariton, and Orions. For example, you quoted the case of Nergal, and I think that in the case of Nergal, it will be the powers of Nergal, for example. But the process is always the same. You replace the vibration of the soul with the vibration of the ended masters, and whoever these ended masters are in each strain.
So if someone, for example, didn't want to take things to that level, but also wanted to work with a vampire undead, could they use any other way in sense of maybe, like, I don't know if you know much about radionics or not, but using radionics to maybe go over a war that's going on and all that death essence and whatever be given to an undead god for a specific purpose, or even, you placing a few drops of your own blood on a petition, working with a being. Could you still work with these beings, or are they only going to work with you if you have the strain?
Well, I think in every case you can still call upon them. There's a lot of these beings were ancient gods, so you can, like, if you want, like doing a one shot or like a period of time working with them and going your way. I think it's possible in some cases. For example, I work myself with the Sumerian beings described in the Encyclopedia of Vampirism. Therefore, I have no life attachment and eternal attachment to some of them. I'm not part of the strain. I'm not linked to them, but still I can call upon them and work on abilities or specific things with them. Therefore, maybe not all beings described in the encyclopedia might enter this category. There is some people that are better left aside if you're not part of the strain, because that's not how they work. To simply, to make it simple.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. Sorry about that. Yeah, I saw Achilles inside of the encyclopedia, and reading about him and then the ancient practices of doing offerings onto him and seeing it as an ancestral type of spirit. I was like, wow, that's not something I had any idea I was going to be reading about. And I mean, it was very intriguing about kind of just becoming, a champion along that way and doing, honor and patronage for his spirit kind of lives on here now.
Well, the cult of immortality is something that exists since the dawn of time. Now, when we look at the terms of vampire, for example, or strigoi, vorkolak, vurkolak, and every of these terms that have been used since the Middle Ages, they have appeared as qualifications under the Christian era. So this have always been demonized, let's say. It is associated to evil by nature. But when you look at antiquity, how the idea of becoming undead was perceived by ancient Greeks and ancient Egyptians, it was pretty much a life goal. It was standard. It was not demonized at all. It was not considered evil. The Egyptians, for example, go to the graves and tombs of grandfathers and forefathers, offering them a bit of blood, a bit of incense, food and sacrifices in order for the ka of the deceased one to live happily and eternally on the other side of the veil. And it's exactly the same process with heroic Greek figures such as Achilles in the poems of Homer. Achilles is described as drinking blood the blood of someone who had been sacrificed to Achilles by the Greek army in order for him to appear. And such a way to call upon a spirit during these times was not perceived as a devilish work or something abnormal. And the cult of Achilles, where warriors going to the grave of Achilles and trying to gain his favors, is something that was renowned all around the Mediterranean Sea. You had people coming from the Persian Empire to visit the grave of Achilles. You had Alexander the Great going there. You had even, as far as I believe, it also existed under the Roman empires, where probably some emperors going there or Caesars going there and trying to make offerings and receive the favors of Achilles that become a god. You had generals and this kind of characters going there. So there was nothing abnormal to this practice at the time. The figure of Achilles was deified by people of that time. And at the time, offering sacrifices of blood to someone whose physical body has passed away, but whose spirit continued to live, was the norm.
And that's things too. It's seeing the perspective with a wider lens of seeing what people used to do in ancient times and honoring and that sacredness to that. And I mean, that kind of just makes me think of Inanna. You know, she had many people sacrificed in her honor, you know, and they had, I mean, shit, man, to be able to do that for Achilles and then be able to get his blessing. I mean, that's some hardcore next level, but sometimes, you know, for deification, right, that J.S. Garrett created, that right, what I've heard from people that it's been able to change for them and what it did for me was magnificent, you know, like the amount of healing and more clarity, and I just felt all around all better. And so it's like the sacredness of pushing the spirit to its next level and evolving and tapping in with the, you know, strain or individual entity so that will help you be able to do that. I mean, that's awesome. I did just get done reading about the Osiris and how in Egypt, you know, how they would do all this different ritualistic things to be able to preserve the body so then the soul can be able to kind of come in and come back. And what's interesting to me is the energy that it creates inside of these pyramids is that they would call it pyre. So it's like a pyre energy, and it helps rejuvenate and basically keep the energy of whatever it is maintained, you know, mummified and all that. But just that energy in general, is that something that you're able to tap in easier with vampirism and kind of building that rejuvenation and healing, those type of properties, would you say?
Well, in the case of what Egyptian did, you know, they did it to a whole other level that what we are doing now, because, you know, they were able to construct entire structures dedicated to the preservation and feeding of bodies. The Great Pyramid, for example, and particularly that of Unas, it is constructed in order to receive telluric and stellar currents in a particular way. So, of course, nobody is doing that anymore, at least nobody at our level. Maybe witcher people do it, but they don't write books about it.
Yeah.
But now, what is most commonly done to rejuvenate yourself is a ritual that I gave in my second book, Skullments. And this is a ritual of burial, where basically you're going to bury yourself as much as you can inside ground earth. And you're going to perform a specific form of meditation to feed upon the essence of the earth. You're going to basically let your body rest inside her for a whole night while doing exercises of breathing in order to absorb the etheric currents inside yourself and rejuvenate yourself. And it's a very powerful ritual.
Wow, that's awesome. I'm definitely going to have to get your second book. I was reading it while I was over at EA's house, and while I was scrolling through it, this is about, I think, about a year, or maybe it was your first book. All I know is I remember scrolling through it, and Being Satanchi came up. And Satanchi, if I'm saying his name correctly, that's the way I always call him. The general of Satan's army, the big beast, and the way you described him as like he has like a warthog and he's super tall and he's like a huge giant, and you know I see him as just a freaking massive monster man, like this 9 foot tall and huge. But did you find working with him just through different readings of different books and then you came about it, or did you find him a certain type of way? I just didn't know how you came across him.
Well, it was part of the curriculum of my mentors, of my predecessors inside the Vander Radionics. So it was, there is a ritual of 9 slot gatekeepers. In our case, they're called prince. But you have this being, which we call Satanachia. And he is basically working on submission, testosterone, everything related to male hormones. And he is going to boost the abilities of the adepts in that domain. So he's only worked with, as far as I know, at least in our curriculum, inside this particular current, where you activate his, use your summoning force and activate his powers, and then feed these powers inside yourself. But yeah, definitely is a strong presence, and the work that he's doing, you know, is basically giving you to the next level when it comes to, let's say, how can I describe this in correct English? But it's competition between males and this kind of stuff. He is the demon in charge of that.
Yeah, it definitely pushed me to take everything from like weights in the gym, or when I go on a run, or when I'm doing something physical, the exertion level adds another 15%. Like when I'm working with him, I always push myself hard when I do things, but like with him, it's an extra bit of go, like elevate.
Yeah.
He's testosterone. You know what? That's it right there. You saying testosterone, that's exactly what it is. It's like arms are like all the way out to here, dude. It's crazy. But yeah, he was someone really, really awesome. I started working with, so I want to say hail to Satanchi and thank you, Andy, for putting him in the book.
Right, it's really a fascinating name, and I don't know why it's not well known. You know, when we saw what's going on the internet for the last year, because Satanaki is definitely, you know, is the Andrew Tate of the world of demons. You know.
Yeah. You know what? Just because you said that, I had this made, man. This is his sigil I got, and I got it on red and there, man. Like, when I do some pretty massive workings, I work with him and a couple other ones, and their synergy together, it's fucking ridiculous is what it is, man. Like, so it's awesome. So I wanted to ask you about lycanthropy. I might have said that incorrectly, but the werewolf. And I read that about the first werewolf and that kind of mythology on how that started, and kind of that whole, I guess it's a strain, and then the 9-year cycle, kind of that whole gamut going on. So that kind of talked like a physical form, and then I'm seeing also the dream state, the astral form, and so I just kind of want to get your take on both of those. And do you think that it is possible to kind of become a werewolf, kind of like how the Native Americans would see skinwalkers? They could become skinwalkers, and I just didn't know your whole thoughts on all those.
So regarding the most recent werewolf case described in the book is the Lord of the Forest, which is called by French Monsieur de la Forêt, as far as I can spell it correctly. And this ritual is going to give the adepts the astral body of the werewolf, basically the dream state of the werewolf, and the act of the werewolf are going to be accomplished on the astral plane. That being said, authors tend to consider that, and it's something that have been noted by most of the adepts that have done this type of rituals, that the werewolf attack tend to leave, physical marks and at best in nightmares to the people who were subjected to these attacks.
Wow.
Regarding the capacity to transform physically into a wolf, this is not something that I have worked myself on, because, to be perfectly honest, I'm not sure to want to shapeshift into something that I can be recognized on the physical plane. But when you look at the Greek text, for example, you had this idea of people transforming into physical beasts, such as described for King Alchemy, for example.
Mm-hmm.
But generally speaking, in Europe, it's on the dream plane. For example, if you look at the Ulfenars and the Berserkers on the North Sagas, they are said, for example, to sleep in the temple where their brothers are watching their bodies. They're watching over, basically. But the sleepers goes to battle under the form of a bear, and that bear appeared to the battlefield. People, wearing arms at a certain place, for example, see a freaking bear coming. So it's a projection. Now, making difference between what can be expected by a magician in our time and what is described in the sagas is very hard to discern, because I'll be completely honest with you, I never saw people projecting a bear and being able to fight them physically on this plane. So is it something that have been romanticized by the sagas, or was it more powerful at the time because everyone in the Viking Age was a believer in Satyr and magic, so manifesting things like that was possible? I don't have a definitive answer to that.
No, I can understand that. I know there was some accounts of people talking about there's werewolves and wendigos and all the shape-shifting things, and some people say Jinn can shape-shift and all those. So when it comes to this reality, I guess there really isn't any limit when it comes to what can happen, what can't happen. But yeah, I just found that was pretty awesome. As I've gone through, well, I think it was really cool, and everyone should definitely do. I mean, they should get the course, as well as we have to talk about the group right and what that will be about. But one thing I'm doing when I'm going through this is I have 2 bookmarks. One is as I go through and I see these different entities, which ones I feel like I should do kind of like a path working with. And so I'm building a list of all the ones I want to work with. And then there's the ones I'm learning about, and then go back through, and you have their history, and then you have rituals you can actually do to work with these entities. And I mean, it really is something massive, really badass. So definitely something everyone needs to pick up. But when it comes to the group right, the Feast of St. Andrew, I wanted to just kind of hear about what you and EA are doing together, and the last day they can sign up and everything that you got.
Well, the Feast of St. Andrew, called the Feast of St. Andrei in Romania, is actually a specific date that happened like every November 13. And it is said that St. Andrew, who is the patron of the wolf, is coming to feast with the wolf at the night. And basically, this is a time period that where the plane of the Strigoi is closer to the material plane. So it is the night where the spirits of Strigoi and vampires in general is the most powerful. So we choose with EA this particular night to do a group ritual to favor the presence of the undeads in the ritual for people who are going to practice with us. Now, the ritual that we're going to do is probably the most extreme experience that I have ever been during a group ritual. So, as I described to you previously, for the creation of empire in general, one must anchor itself to a strain. And this strain is a link to the powers of, in general, 4 cardinal spirits. The spirits, as far as my researches go, and my friend Alexander Ellen has found, is linked to different stars. Now, traditionally in Europe, these spirits are Paimon, Ariton, Orions, and Amaimon, and they are mentioned in the Book of Abramelin and the Mage. Now, what we're going to do during this ritual is I have taken with me the best guy I know for evoking demon, which is EA Godding. Honestly, in the world, I cannot think of a best man to evoke demonic princes. So I have convinced EA to call upon these 4 demons at the same time during this ritual for the people who are going to subscribe to transform them. So we are going straight to the source. While on my side, I'm going to call upon one of the most dangerous undead that exists in the strain, which is as a Debatory, which I didn't even place inside the Encyclopedia of Vampirism, which is one which is rejuvenation, but also possession. So basically the ability to possess someone. So we are going to make the greatest combination I could think of in terms of vampirism with this ritual. Me evoking the Bloody Countess, and on his side, EA directly evoking directly the 4 princes of vampirism.
Wow, that honestly, that sounds like a nuke. You know, both after your first wave, I thought about it. I didn't really know. Second wave was like, maybe. This right here sounds like, if you haven't done it yet, hop aboard right now. That sounds so potent, man, and that's just hyping like right into that strain.
Even if you have done the previous ones, this one is going to catapult you directly to the source, because we're awakening the direct powers of the strain, which has this 4 demons inside yourself. So it's not only anchoring yourself to an undead master and to the strain. It is anchoring yourself to the very demons that are being the strain and animating the strain with their essence. We're going to place them under you right now.
Oh my gosh. Well, everyone, you heard it right here, right now, and I will have all the links down below to check out Indy Blackwood's new book, The Encyclopedia of Vampirism, and also his other books you definitely have to check out. We'll have both of those. We should have both those listed too. And his course, I mean, I can only imagine you and EA also adding a course on top of this all together.
Yeah.
Man, I bet so you just kind of teach some different kind of hidden things that you learned, or just more into ancient history in your video course?
Yeah, the video course itself is there's 1 hour with EA quoting where we basically discuss the most forbidden experience that we had together. So it's called Sinister Vampirism. I had 2 hours, of course, with Adam Locks where we discuss the details to evoke this undeads and the procedure itself. We were basically very going into the details of the state of mind that you had to have, how you worked with the tools, how basically the inner components of the ritual and the attitude you have work with this, the expectation you can have by working with the demon, with this undead and demons, and generally the objectives of vampirism. While finally, I also play something that I didn't plan at the beginning to place, but was a bit driven by spirits to place, is a step-by-step evocation of the Dark One, which is one of the being presented in that book. And that ritual works as a form of auto-hypnosis, which means that the people can, at the same time, listen to this video by being relaxed on a chair or basically, sleeping on the bed, and doing the ritual mentally with me to evoke the presence of the undead with me. Basically, this video allows them to live the ritual in the same time as me and connect with me to the spirit.
Wow, that's some badass stuff, man. I mean, that's a DIY right there, and just hop aboard with it, man. This is incredible. Thank you so much for your time, Andy. This has been spectacular. I'm excited to. I mean, I'm most likely going to have to jump on board this time, but I will definitely say within the next 24 hours, the rest of that book's going to be read because it is interesting as hell. And, it's kind of got a little mini path working set out for my future. So hell yeah, man. Thank you so much. If you have any final statements to give the people, please, the floor is all yours.
Well, I think the main things that have been said during that video. So I hope that you will enjoy the encyclopedia, enjoy the ritual for those who basically want to enter this current by the great door. And basically, I'm waiting for the comments of people who basically wants to correspond with me on the board of Become a Living God. I'm very accessible for that. I like to talking to other magicians, so shy. And come to me and let's have a great chat.
Yeah, hell yeah, everyone. Hit him up on the forum and stay tuned to see all the great things coming. Thank you again. I'll talk to you later.
Thank you, Will.
Hell yeah, thank you.